The episode begins with the scumbag boyfriend demanding the female lead, Momo, to sleep with him as a condition for borrowing money if she still wants to date him. Momo drops her bag and answers by kicking him straight in the face. He blocks her punches and kicks, then stomps her stomach, knocking her to the ground. He sneers, "I'm not interested in a poor girl who won't put out." In class, Momo's friends can't understand why she's cursing out loud by naming random seafood, while she sobs over being dumped. The reason she liked that jerk. His face looked like her favorite idol's. This was nothing new to her friends, so they just ignored it, knowing lecturing her would be a waste of breath. Walking down the hallway, Momo happens to see a nerdy, glasses-wearing boy quietly reading a book while bullies throw paper at him. Feeling indignant, she walks up, sits in front of him, starts a conversation, and casually asks to borrow his book. When the bullies leave, Momo storms out of the classroom, loudly shouting, "Is the world just full of trash now or what?" Frustrated, she looks for a place to blow off steam, but hears the nerd calling her name. He stutters, "Someone like you wouldn't talk to me unless there's a reason." Momo assumes it's a misunderstanding since she had no intention of befriending him. Before she can respond, the nerd thrusts his book at her, asking, "You're into supernatural stuff, aren't you?" Momo waves him off, saying, "I don't believe in that nonsense. You're annoying." She ignores him, but he gets even more persistent, rambling on. Finally losing her temper, she snaps, "I'm heartbroken right now and not in the mood for this. It's otakus like you who obsess over weird stuff and end up with no friends." After walking away a bit, Momo realizes she might have gone too far. She turns back, apologizes for her words, picks up his book, dusts it off, and says, "While I don't believe in aliens, I do think ghosts are real." The nerd bursts out laughing, saying, "Ghosts don't exist." This irritates Momo. She brags about her grandmother being a spirit medium and asks, "Have you ever seen an exorcism with someone writhing around?" Before saying things like that, the nerd flips through his book, replying, "There's no proof that ghosts exist." Momo leans in and retorts, "Oh, and you've been abducted by aliens before, right? So you know they're real." After some back and forth, Momo challenges him, "If ghosts exist, you'll be my servant." The nerd fires back, "If you encounter aliens, you'll work for me." That night, Momo heads to an abandoned hospital rumored to be a UFO hotspot. Flashlight in hand, she calls out, "Hey, nerd. Did the aliens abduct you for experiments yet?" He replies, "Maybe they did." People who've been abducted often have their memories erased. Meanwhile, the nerd has been tasked with exploring a sealed tunnel known online for ghost sightings. Too scared to enter, he loiters outside until Momo mocks him so much he works up the nerve to step inside. As he walks further, he asks her, "So, have you actually seen a ghost before?" Her admission that she hasn't makes him furious at her bluffing. Momo shares her story. "My grandmother is a spirit medium who raised me after my parents passed away. Our family has this odd tradition of raising our hands to the sky for protection before leaving the house. I used to do it all the time, but the boys would tease me for it. One day, even the boy I liked made fun of me, and I got mad at my grandma. I told her that her silly rituals made people hate me. Even though I stopped talking to her and doing the rituals, would get angry when people mocked my family. Eventually, I realized it wasn't because I hated the rituals, it was because I didn't want someone I liked to insult my grandma. Both she and her work as a medium are special to me, and that's why I believe in ghosts." The close-up replied, "Does there need to be a reason to like something?" As the two gradually understood each other better, he suddenly discovered bloody footprints stretching throughout the tunnel. The woman slowly turned around and saw an old woman with bright eyes saying, "I will breastfeed you, in exchange you give me a blowjob to your younger brother." He was startled and ran for his life as the tunnel grew longer and longer, seemingly endless. Momo tried to convince him to stop because running away from her was dangerous. It was said on the internet that you absolutely must not let Mrs. Tubo pass, otherwise she will kill you. Because she couldn't reach her phone, she had to turn around to help but was suddenly stopped by 3 mysterious men. Momo tried to run away but unfortunately was caught by them. When they saw her awake, the three introduced themselves as aliens. "We are friendly people," they declared. "What kind of friend would strip a girl from a good family? Your belongings are very carefully managed, it's just a little torn, must be a little. Pay it off." They began to confide. "Our race only has males, so we must use cloning techniques to increase the number of individuals. But this method has the disadvantage of limiting the evolution of organisms and gradually losing them. So, we'll push the cart with you. After we're done, we'll take our supplies and bananas to study." Momo struggled and said, "Don't joke. Even though I once dated a bastard, I want to keep my virginity. That's the virginity kept for my unmet idol. How can I do this to someone else? You disgusting aliens." Just as she was about to succeed, Momo's phone started ringing as the alien picked it up and suddenly saw two Bo's ant jump in, kick him out, then thrust it straight into another guy's groin and throw him away. After that, my neighbor came and said, "I have been haunted by two Bo." As soon as he finished speaking, she took control of him and continuously demanded to be beaten. At this point, all three simultaneously raised their hands and tore them off to peel off the disguise, revealing their true identities. They forced him to hand over his bananas. He used 6 senses to capture her, but she was too fast to hit her. She approached and took down one of the guys, but the other guy used the Serpo method to stick her into the wall. He told me to hand over the bananas, then approached and declared, "I will deliver, because I always want to meet people from space. I don't have any friends, so I thought maybe I could make friends with people from space." During elementary school, I looked up to the sky. It's called a UFO. Humans bully me to kill time, aliens don't even acknowledge my existence, but Momo protects me so I can't be touched. I will absolutely not forgive those who touch him if it's for him. I'm willing to turn into a monster. Momo tried her best to encourage her, but after taking another blow, the young man became discouraged and wanted to give up. The impatient man moved over to continue complaining, but at this moment, Momo, who was struggling, began to reminisce about her. The sudden concentration of energy destroyed the chair. The alien was surprised because his energy was pushed back. Why is that? Maybe because of too much wave manipulation. The chakra has already opened. With her explosive energy, she kicked a guy straight in the head. The alien kicked his ex-lover's name, sending him flying out. The kick also destroys the UFO's stealth layer. Just after escaping, Ms. Bo jumped on top. Momo was forced to use force to push her out of her body. Although she escaped, the old woman still kept her precious assets in her hand so she could still control the male protagonist. As long as the boy is kept, the curse cannot be broken. Because this place is far from her territory, she weakens and disappears, but before leaving, she challenges, "If you want to solve it, go to the tunnel. We'll have fun, you gaudy old woman." Momo, who are you calling a gaudy old woman but a rotten old woman? Give him banana patties. Meanwhile, Ken begins to lose control due to the curse. He went crazy, demanding to suck the little guy wildly. Momo was forced to use her ability to control him. If you want to break the curse, the only way is to defeat Bo. The girl suddenly stood up, took off her clothes, gave them to her to wear and said she would solve this problem herself and could not involve him anymore. Momo said angrily, "After what just happened, how can I ignore you? Just now, if it weren't for me, you would have died." Momo went to pick up the clothes and made him put them on. He suddenly said in confusion, "Please put on clothes, otherwise I can't look at you and talk because I'm very clumsy." Suddenly, Momo's heart was pounding. Maybe because he just read a line from Ito Katakura Ken, she was so moved that she asked and found out that his name was also Katakura Ken. After finding out that his name was the same as Ito's, Momo threw herself on the floor, dramatically throwing a tantrum and refusing to accept the truth. Meanwhile, Ken lost control, his eyes wild, constantly demanding to nurse like a little child, forcing the female lead to use her powers to restrain him. At this point, she gave Ken the nickname Boken because she didn't want to mention his real name. Even though she wouldn't call him by his name, Ken was visibly happy, which made Momo laugh uncontrollably. The two of them kept chatting as they walked, and soon enough, they welcomed the dawn together. Momo thought Tubo wouldn't show up during the day since demons typically only operate at night. However, Ken looked even more helpless than a child, so Momo decided to take him to her house. When they arrived at her house, she warned him that her grandmother was very strict about boys, to the point where her ex-boyfriend had almost died because of it. Ken felt a little nervous, but as soon as they stepped into the shrine's gate, he was suddenly engulfed in flames, burning brighter than Ghost Rider. Momo quickly threw him into a nearby drain, only to remember that there was a protective barrier in front of her house set by her grandmother to ward off demons. She had to temporarily remove it so Ken could enter. Ken, still shaken, hesitated, and when asked how he felt, he said it hurt and felt burning. Adding that his hair looked like messy cauliflower once inside, the contrast between Momo's modern room and the old architecture of the house became apparent. While waiting for Momo to change, Turbo lost control again and broke in, startling the female lead, who quickly pushed him outside. After some struggling between changing and controlling him, Momo finally finished and gave Ken some clothes to wear. She then asked, "You don't have that thing anymore, right? Show me. Didn't Grandma Tubbo curse you and take it away?" Ken suddenly remembered, checked, and was horrified to find that his little brother was missing. Despite Momo asking several times, he refused to show her. Over such a trivial matter, they started arguing. Momo thought she had never been interested in the supernatural from the start, and it was Ken's constant prying that led to their fight. Ken responded thoughtfully, "I didn't want to miss the chance. I've always wanted a friend, but you seem to live in a world of your own. People like me shouldn't try to start conversations with you. I'm sorry for putting you in danger. After this, just ignore me like usual." Momo thought Ken's attitude was the most frustrating, constantly making assumptions and creating distance, which was why he didn't have any friends. So, she told him not to talk to her about the supernatural anymore, just act normal. While struggling, the two were attracted by the sound of a bell. Ken thought her grandmother must have returned. But Momo doesn't think so because the house has two bells, one for humans, one for evil spirits. Because I took it down so you could enter the house, I accidentally created conditions for them to come. The two sneaked out through the back door to look around, but saw no trace of the evil spirit. Only see black and gray sky. Then suddenly, the four tanks turned into walls, trapping the two of them. Worse yet, the temple gate was covered by the wall, so pasting the talisman on it had no effect. While trying to find a way out, Momo noticed her nose was bleeding, and at the same time, Ken also started bleeding and collapsed. It was all caused by the mist, and everything was due to the giant evil spirit hanging upside down in the sky. While they were still trying to figure out what was happening, the evil spirit attacked. Luckily, Momo reacted in time and pushed them both out of the way, allowing them to escape. Strangely, the talisman was now useless, and their only option was to run for their lives. Even though they were running for their lives, they still had time to argue about whether it was an evil spirit or an alien. Momo thought Ken was being haunted by a spirit, while Ken believed it was a famous 3-meter-tall alien. As for the bell for evil spirits, research showed that people who frequently experienced the supernatural might also see UFOs. In short, there were some common points between aliens and demons, so the creature could very well be an accomplice of the aliens from the day before. "If we don't deal with it, we'll die from the toxic gas," Momo said. But, because she was both trying to escape and suppress the evil spirit for Ken, Momo didn't have the strength to fight anymore. Having to avoid attacks while also trying to break the curse made the situation even more complicated. "We need to put the talisman up. If we don't deal with it, we'll die from the toxic gas," Momo said, in this difficult situation. Ken clenched his cursed hand and said, "I'll fight. Release the curse. You can let it spread throughout my body, but can you suppress it in my head?" While they were discussing strategies, the alien kept playing peekaboo. After escaping outside, Momo told him that she hadn't mastered her powers yet, so she wasn't sure if she could do it. However, despite her best efforts, Ken was still taken over by the evil spirit. But when faced with the giant alien's attack, a miracle happened. The main character, with his strength, was able to easily carry Momo out of danger. However, since the evil spirit was still anchored in his head, Ken started showing signs of distress, always appearing discouraged and even thinking of himself as clumsy, which made Momo frustrated. She had to shake him repeatedly to snap him out of it. Maine, regardless of life, stood in front of a cosmic person and was beaten up by it. I thought he had collapsed, but there was nothing wrong with his mind. He didn't lack strength, according to his instincts. Our main, please. His 5 fingers gently touched him sweetly. I thought it was delicious, but at this moment our main character was vomiting blood and trembling. At this moment, the alien jumped in to feed the main onion so he wouldn't miss it. But luckily Momo was able to save her in time. This time it wasn't just the banana that was lost. Sorry, but my body can't withstand the power of the curse. I feel like my whole body is being torn into pieces. While confused, Momo realized it was a sumo wrestler. If we make its hand touch the ground, we will win. The plan is in place. Momo will use her control ability while Ken uses his strength to knock it down. The cosmic person raised his foot into the sky and kicked the ground, tearing it apart. Ken immediately charged forward, destroying its legs, while Momo used her right hand to suppress the curse and her left hand to deal with it. Sure enough, the spaceman showed signs of disappearing when its hand touched the ground. But he cheated again, turned around, grabbed the female lead and threw her away. With that momentum, he immediately punched Momo straight into the wall. Even though she was seriously injured, Momo still prioritized curing Ken's curse. Just stay there and I'll handle it myself. You've angered me, you space trash. Even though Momo was punched miserably, she still refused to dodge and let him attack in a place that counted as outside the temple gate, then quickly pulled the main character out and stuck the talisman on the temple gate, and that's how there was a dancing man. Coal-burning pillar. Momo was so tired that she was out of breath, but she still had to pay attention to lift Ken's curse. She praised him for having such a good head. After speaking, the female lead immediately collapsed and fainted, leaving Ken to once again lose control and turn into a demon.